Hey Ralph, good morning. It's wonderful coming up here every morning and seeing the change in the water flow. It's very quiet and soft this morning in comparison to how it was the last few days last week when I was up. Morning cousin Julie, hope you're well. Hope everyone's well actually on this fine Wednesday morning. We're halfway through the week already. Good morning Marcy. Hope you're well. Right, good morning. There you go. There's my papa. Old Sanny the tree. Good morning everybody. Hey wee man. What is it? You tired? Right. Good morning, Wednesday morning. I've been back from my little adventure. This would be 2 days now. And I've been mulling over the life in a miniature concepts and trust the process and my next steps and what insights could I share that would be helpful for people to contemplate things that might be going on in their own lives. And you know, I think the most beautiful thing about the adventure at the weekend was getting to look at it in life in a miniature, and that every person, every individual person had a unique process to them, and that process showed up in different ways and predominantly towards the end, if you like, the completion line, and how certain individuals had a more graceful, easier way at the end of getting back home, if you like, whereas others found that difficult and it was a struggle and trains were cancelled, so they're in the last minute of the last hour and they're eager to get back home, and they arrive at the train station where they've pre-booked a ticket to find out that their train has been cancelled. There was a whole array of different experiences, and I guess that got me thinking about how we could use our world as a biofeedback mechanism. Now, predominantly most of us are walking about, living from old scripts and schemas. We're walking about in a hypnagogic trance. We're pretty much in a state of hypnosis all the time. And that's one of the reasons why I love long distance walking, and I also love long distance driving. So my buddy Gordon and I were talking about concerts and music and country music, and I said, I remember I was up in Georgia. I was up in Georgia, Atlanta studying, which was 10 years ago, which also ties into what I'm talking about this morning, because I was up there and I was studying a thing called neurofeedback, which is brain-based biofeedback. And I saw that Dolly Parton, we were talking about Taylor Swift actually, how he took his girls to see Taylor Swift. I said, I went to see her in Nashville, Tennessee at the Grand Ole Opry. And I drove there 14 and a half hours and didn't think anything at all about it to drive from North Georgia over to Nashville and go to a concert. And getting to drive on those vast, expansive highways where you end up going into what I would call as highway hypnosis, where you just disappear, where you've been in the car for 5 hours and you would genuinely think you've only been there for a few hours. So what we are is we've got a lot of programs, if you like, in our software or hardware, depending what way you look at that, right? Or think about it. There's no any right or wrong answer because nobody else is really using this terminology for brain-based states. But we get programmed from a very, very early age. And there is even schools of thoughts that think there is intergenerational and systemic architecture within the fibres of our DNA, which is passed on even preconception from the sperm and the egg of which our gestation process begins. So we're in utero, we're in the womb, and although we can't go in there and interview a baby in the womb, we can only really start to do that from when a child is born. But science has started to change our belief systems around about, a baby is a brand new white canvas, if you like, blank canvas when the child comes into the world. There's now more evidence steering towards a child comes pre-programmed for a world of which its mother was experiencing electrochemically and biochemically and so forth. So I won't bore you with the details of that, but then we come into the world and then we start to get programmed and conditioned from the second that we arrive in this planet. But I would be more inclined to say that there is intergenerational and systemic architecture within the DNA fibres of our system before we've even arrived in this world. And when we become to this world, we start to become programmed and conditioned at a non-conscious level. Precognition, because a newborn baby has no condition, no sense of self, and no belief that it can't do anything up until its brain state start to change and form. Now, a lot of those programs end up finding their way into libraries in the brain, in a place of what is called the unconscious mind, okay? So that is completely invisible, not seen, you can't see it, right? It's below the surface. And then you've got the pre-conscious brain, or what people are calling that now, the subconscious mind. And then you've got the conscious mind, which is a very, very small part of who we are. But somewhere within those different structures in our fibres, there's an analytical mind. Right now, I can get stuck in there quite a lot of the time, and I can get stuck in my thinking brain quite a lot. So therefore, pastimes which I do, which allows me, and I'm not projecting them that they would be helpful for you, because each of you is an individual and each of you have your own brain. And without me actually taking a brain image or a quantitative electrosonophonograph of your brain, all I would be doing would be throwing darts in the dark, which pretty much the whole of Western medicine, psychiatry and psychology is doing, unless they're looking at cluster behaviour symptoms within you, and then formulating an idea of what might be wrong with you. So, but my brain is busy. I know I have an analytical mind, and I know that can keep me stuck from time to time. So when I go for a drive in order to clear my mind, quite simply put, I was speaking to my buddy Gordon about this as well. We had loads of time. We were walking for hours. But a small drive, for me, like a lot of folk will say, I'm away for a drive to clear my head. Going for a drive 40 minutes isn't enough to get me into that state, that highway hypnosis. So, like for me, if there was something going on in London, for an example, from Scotland, I was talking to somebody about it the other day there. I was talking at an event in London recently, and I knew that I had to formulate some ideas around about that talk. So I chose to drive down, because driving would have been probably, to a lot of us, the most stressful option and certainly the more time-consuming option. But as soon as I get rolling and I don't stop, I've got my sandwiches. I'm the worst person in the world to go a road trip, by the way, because you're not getting to stop for a toilet, you're not getting to stop for Haribos and sweeties. It's like we get in the car and it's lock the doors and on we go. Now, highway hypnosis. Now, why am I getting to this? And then walking hypnosis. So as I walk, it allows me to drop away from my thinking brain, and allows the thoughts of the unconscious to start to come up, and allows me to have insights into what's really going on below the surface. Now, back early on in my practice, before neurofeedback, I was very interested in a thing called biofeedback, and biofeedback, quite simply, is where you use your brain in order to start to change your body state, right? So what I've been thinking about this morning, again, none of this is rehearsed, so it might sound a bit clunky and chuttery. I've not sat up and done a PowerPoint presentation to deliver. But what if our world, your particular world, is a biofeedback mechanism, and what you're experiencing in your world is really giving you an insight into your inner workings of your invisible mind? What if the world that you're experiencing and that you inhabit is simply a backdrop of projections of which your unconscious mind is having to deal with? Now, for an example, a guy that was on the walk who, and I'm saying this with love, there's no judgment, because I have no residual anger or resentment towards the behaviour. But this chap had bought a couple of train tickets, and when we were at Glencoe, because he knew my car was up there, he said, "Can I get a lift down the road with you?" I said, "Aye, not a problem," right? So off we went on our last 27 miles, and off we went on the last 27 miles of the journey, and I was almost in Fort William. I was about away, and the chap phoned me and he said, "I'm going to miss my train by the skin of my teeth. I'm going to miss the train by the skin of the teeth, so you just wait for me." Something along those lines, right? And I said, "No, I'm not waiting 2 hours for you." He said, "Well, how's it 2 hours?" I said, "Well, the train's at 20 to 6 and it's like whatever, 10 to 4, whatever the time is." I said, "So it's an hour and 50 minutes away. I'm not going to wait around freezing cold. You've got 2 train tickets. I'm with a few guys that haven't got any train home. So we're just going to head down the road, so I'm not hanging about cold where there's nowhere open," right? And in that moment, because he'd just been on the road for 3 days, I completely understand that. And he's been walking and he's challenged himself and his stuff's coming to the surface. He got a little bit snappy with me and attempted to make it my responsibility that he was an hour and 50 minutes behind me, and that he had no money, and that he had no phone, and that it was my responsibility to get him home, right? So anyway, he did make the train in time, only to find out when he got there that the train was cancelled, right? So then he had to get a loan of money off another guy, and the other guy, and he got up. His journey home was very, very different than my journey home. But when I was talking to Gordon last night, my buddy, about it, my journey home was where I had just walked massive amount of miles, feet were hanging off me, completely shattered, completely knackered, and of course here I am, which I'm happy to do. I'm the one driving the car, responsible for 5 people, 4 other people including myself, to get them home. So I had to hold it together. I had to not think about my pain and my suffering and the stuff that I had learned about during the walk and all these different thoughts that were going through my mind, until I actually let the very last person go and drop them off, and I could just completely let go and let the feelings come up, and the sadness and the tears and the frustration of it all, and able to let it go. Then later on that day, the very last chap that I dropped off was a guy called Chris, who absolutely love him to bits. He's a fantastic friend. Him and his girlfriend Shona are just the most wonderful couple. They're really gorgeous. And he said, "No, Ross, you don't need to take me right up to the house. You can just drop me off at the end of the drive." After 3 days and 96 miles of excruciating pain, I let him off at the end of the drive. Of course, he didn't know there at that point. His girlfriend wasn't at the house, her car wasn't there, and that she was at the flat in Edinburgh. So his end of his journey, after the end of 96 miles, was that he had to slump up against the front door in the rain and the cold on a Sunday night after just having a horrendous experience, and have to wait for somebody to let him in. So, why am I telling you all this? Because each of us have an experience in life, right, that we are using other behaviours to avoid actually experiencing what's going on inside us at an unconscious level. Because what we try and do is we attempt to busy our mind and make ourselves busy, and then we become very, very busy, where our life becomes very frantic, and we actually use that busyness as a hypnotic state. Now again, if you've heard me, you've watched some of these vlogs, I don't like the word better or higher or lower, because genuinely I don't think things are higher and lower, right? But let's just imagine that the frequency of busyness you could measure in hertz, okay? And the frequency of busyness is at such a level, buzzing, buzz, right? That's my interpretation of it. But you've got something going on in your unconscious mind, which might be a story that I'm not good enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not fat enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not funny enough, I'm not lovable enough, I'm not a good person. Any of these stories that are going on that are buried in your unconscious mind. I'm not as good as my sister, I'm not as good as my brother, I'm better than my sister or my brother, so I have to tone myself down because I feel guilty that my brother or my sister could have mental health issues, or that my brother or sister might be disabled. I don't know what family you're from, and I don't know what your belief systems are, but I know that I have belief systems that are locked in my unconscious mind that if I were to experience them, they would have pain, okay? And what we do is we then take ourselves into becoming very busy. So then we're flying, if you like. And that busyness becomes a hypnosis so that we're actually vibrating at a higher frequency than the frequency of the pain, so that we get to avoid the pain in our consciousness. But what starts to happen is that pain gets projected out onto the backdrop of the world. And where I'm going with this conversation is that the world could be a biofeedback mechanism to what's really going on inside you. So, in your world, for an example, and I might be off with this, do you find that people are pushing you out, people oust you out, people bully you, people make fun of you? Now, my question would be, before you blame the external environment that could be your perfect biofeedback mechanism, are there areas where you're bullying yourself, where you're ousting yourself out from yourself, where you've installed hardware programs and belief systems about yourself that may be going on at a conscious level, a subconscious level, or an unconscious level? Now, we're back at work and my client base is starting to fill back up again. And the beautiful thing about the work that I do is that you start to see themes and patterns of behaviour within clients and individuals. And what I seem to find that on a conscious level, people say they want something, like I want richness, I want success, I want love, I want to be sober, right? But in actual fact, when you start working with them and you get into the process, they consciously want success, they consciously want love, they consciously want connection, they consciously want these things, but their world, which is showing up, their actual real state, has got no connection in it, no finances in it, no love in it, and certainly no sobriety in it. So consciously, which is a very small part of what or who we are, has this want for something, but unconsciously, our unconscious program has got more dominance, and that's showing up. So unconsciously, the behaviour and patterns of behaviour that are set up, either addiction or lack of connection or lack of finances, lack of love, lack of whatever, has a deeper and bigger stranglehold over the individual, and that's actually what's showing up in our life. So how do we use our world, right? How do we use our world as a biofeedback mechanism, right? How do we start to look at our environment, look at this movie that we inhabit, and whatever it is that's showing up in your world? So I got the phone call. I had to take responsibility for another individual because they were going to miss the train. And it was like, is that a story of my life? Yep, that's a story of my life. So this chap was going to miss his train, wanted to make me feel guilty, wanted to make me feel bad. He got a little bit upset, and I totally and completely understand where he was at. He's just done 96 miles. What, you're going to leave a man with no money and no phone in Fort William? Well, no, I'm leaving a man that's got 2 train tickets in Fort William, and I've got 3 men here, one that's injured, that's actually arrived at the destination an hour and 50 minutes before you, and we're all cold and we're just going to jump in the car and get down the road. But what came knocking at my door was, this person wanted to make me responsible for where they were at. And in my family history, looking back from age 0 to age 8, when my programs were getting installed, that was one of the programs that I pretty much got taken care of. It was my responsibility, or I felt as if it was my responsibility, to take care of everybody else's need in the family. And at that point, I would take on board archetypes of the Joker, where I'd be the little funny guy, right? You know, family might be arguing, but I'll come in and be the Joker and play the fool and be comical. I threw away my education, I threw away schooling, I threw away any opportunities that I had to attempt to, in inverted commas, save my family, take responsibility for them, right? Now, the beautiful thing about that experience that happened in Fort William was, I never took it on. not strictly true. I took it on momentarily. I processed it externally with a friend, and I was noticing how my mind was wanting to get into it, right? So, direction of thought, changing my mindset into, as I started to get caught up in the feelings of their stuff, right, and my feelings around that situation, I started to notice, because I'm been doing biofeedback on myself for a long time, I noticed that my hands started to get cold. And when my hands start to get cold, that's a sure sign that Ross is starting to contract in his thinking, contract in his biochemical responses to his environment, okay? And I feel that that's not helpful for me. So I steer my attention towards the truth of the situation rather than the story. I stopped looking for Gordon's input or other individuals' input. I stopped analysing it. I stopped trying to give it any energy. And I sat with my body, I sat with my breath, and then I noticed that my hands started to get warmer again. And then my hands started heating up. And I was able to take control of my biochemical response that my brain was having, my body was having to my environment. So, how's that helpful for you? So, would it be helpful for you to start to look at your life in a miniature, on a minute-to-minute, day-to-day process, and start, rather than unpeeling the past, what happened to you? Because each and every single one of us, in my experience, really wants something to blame, right? If you're angry or crab it, my dad was angry and crab it. We, as substance users, be that alcohol or whatever, cocaine or heroin, whatever it is that you're using, smoking hash, whatever that might be, right? We're always looking for the reason why we do the behaviour, and then once we've got the reason to why we do the behaviour, we'll stop the behaviour. Right, how many of you have actually analytically found out the reason why you're drinking every night, right? Or why you've came to who you've been? The why question, in a lot of ways, when done in your own, not with someone else to hold you accountable, but when we start to ask the why question as an individual on our own, in our own head, that why question only takes us down a rabbit hole which is as addictive, which has a belief in itself that you'll never get the answer, because it doesn't want you to give up the substance. It doesn't want you to give up the behaviour. Now, that might be that you're in an abusive relationship, that you're in a toxic relationship, that your husband or girlfriend is verbally abusive or emotionally unavailable, right? Because if your partner's not emotionally available to you, then you feel that you're not good looking enough, that there's something wrong with you. You internalise that. And it's a psychological abuse that's as painful to the human condition as somebody that comes in and hits you over the head with a baseball bat. Right? And then you start to question yourself, your sanity, right? And the person that's doing the behaviour starts to question why they're doing that. Oh, it's because whatever, it's because I'm aging, I'm getting older and I'm finding that difficult, so I'll act like a knob. Or work's really, really pressured right now and my boss is really putting a lot of pressure on me, so that means that and then you get an excuse. And one of the biggest things that we get is like an excuse of being, oh, I got fired from work. So that gives you quite a bit of an excuse to play the victim for quite a long while. Or indeed, if you've lost a loved one or whatever social status, then you get quite a lot of power out of a singular event that then gives you an excuse to disappear up your own arse, drinking alcohol, smoking dope and acting like a knob, right? So, how can we start to use our world, our life in a miniature, through the experiences that we get, through the work that we're beginning to embark on, the team of people that we're putting Scouting About together? We've got ultramarathon runners, we've got teachers, we've got guys that's owned their own business, we've got people that have walked Everest, we've got guys that have ran ultramarathons, we've got guys that have walked the Appalachian Trail, we've got a dude that was in the Foreign Legion, and we're gathering all of that experience together to deliver a programme through Scouting About to get people to walk and talk and get out of their analytical mind, right? And get out, because you will never solve a problem from the mind that created it, right? So if the problem's in the mind and you're trying to fix it in the mind, good luck with that, right? So, I could rabble on about this stuff for ages, but I'll keep some content for tomorrow. I hope that this has been helpful. Look around about you. What's showing up in your world? Is what's showing up in your world creating an expansion, an expansive experience, which is heating up your hands? Or is it causing a contractive experience, which is cooling down your hands, right? If it's causing a contractive experience, is that contractive experience beneficial? Or is it not beneficial? Is the expansive experience beneficial or not beneficial? If you have an experience in your life that's not beneficial and you're holding on to that experience, my question would be, what are you getting out of having that? What are you getting out of having this story around about, I've not got success. I've not got to a place where my mortgage, man, that's my one, right? That's a belter for me. It's like another failed relationship and I've got another 23 year left in my mortgage, right? Now, had I just knuckled down and managed to find my way through certain relationships that I've been in my life, my mortgage would have been paid off in the next couple of years, and I would have been half thinking about a different story. But no, because of my inabilities, flaws and failures, and indeed their flaws and failures that they may or may not ever look at, that's not my responsibility. But here I am. Morning. It goes well. And you? You go well? Yes. Go well. Have a great day. Now, yeah, that's my one. I'm a failure and blah, 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 blah. I've got 23 years left in my mortgage or 22 years left in my mortgage or whatever. And, oh man, I'm going to be paying that off until I'm 70 and blah, 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 blah. But I don't know what's round the corner. I could be dead in 2 years and, the insurance will pay off and my daughter will get it anyway. How do I know? But I love to tell myself that story, and when I tell myself that story, my world gets contractive and my hands get cold, right? So, what stories are you telling yourself, and are those stories beneficial to your development? Are they hindering your development? Or are they increasing your chances for success and having a happier and healthier life? So, thank you very much. I wish you all a fantastic Wednesday. I am excited. I am going into Glasgow today. Whoop, whoop. I've not been in Glasgow very much since lockdown ended. And I'm going in to meet my buddy Libby. And Libby and I are going to meet up at Kelvingrove Art Galleries and go for a little walk along the canal. So I am very excited about that. I'm gravitating towards 11 o'clock and meeting her in town. And that's given me something to focus on before I have to get back this afternoon and get my head into work and get a wee, what do you call that I'm doing? A wee project completed and handed in, and it can get marked and we can move on to the next thing. So, have a great day. Wish you all the very best. Be safe. Bye.